continuing our previous lesson related to our database and our idea version off to the side. Once again, if I'm seeing the red check mark next to data, that means I have it selected. I can go to history and see the navigation that's been done. Field statistics gives me some summary total, min, max. So I'm looking for a range of data. I'm looking for minimum, maximum, looking if things are sort of outside of our norm. I can go to my field statistics and get a feel for the values included in my data set. If I go back to my data, I can apply a control total. Once again, that is for any numerical value. And then I also have idea or criteria that I can place on a particular database. And once again, that's usually very similar to a formula. So if you're looking for something equal to a particular value, or for things that are within a range, minimum, maximum, equal to, you can go ahead and write an equation. And we'll get into equations more as we continue on. Also too, in IDEA, they have another area where they call it in indices or index. And really what an index is, it's a fancy way or a different term for saying that there is some sort of sorting going on based off of the different field that you select. So within our database, we have product number. And as I'm hovering, you'll see that our product number is numeric and the number of decimals that has been defined for that particular field is equal to 0. If I hover over beginning inventory, you'll also see that that's a numerical value. Decimals are equal to 0. And then column 3, its character and length type is 1. But as we see and we realize that all of those fields are blank for our records. So let's say, for example, I wanted to be able to sort on my inventory, beginning inventory quantity, and I wanted it to be sorted from smallest to greatest. What I can do is go to the top of my field name and I can just go ahead and I can double click on it. Now you'll see that, and really where it changed was that now I have this little red arrow and it's showing in ascending order. So when I did that, you'll also notice off to the right hand side that it used to say I had no index, and now I have an index on beginning inventory quantity, which is the field name, /A, which means it's in ascending order. So let's say, for example, I wanted to look at beginning inventory from where I have the greatest quantity to the smallest quantity. I can double click on the field name once again, and you'll notice now the arrow is going in the opposite direction or in descending order, and then it has the inventory item that has the greatest quantity, and it goes down from a smaller value from there. You'll also notice another index was prepared or created over here, beginning inventory quantity /D, so descending order. If I want to take it off and go back, and really all that means is that there's a sort on my data, I can go back to no index and it gets my data, it puts my data back in the original order as it was imported into IDEA. So what's nice about this is that it's not changing my data, it's not really reordering it, it's putting a temporary sort on my data, and that allows me to go ahead and to take it off and get back to my original data if I want. Okay, so we have our beginning inventory quantity. So if we have beginning inventory cost, so in this particular file I have product number, product class, product description, sales price, unit cost. So let's say I wanted to look at them at the same time. So if you notice what I did, and I'll just go ahead and close it and then reopen it again. If I go up to the top and where my database is it sort of puts it in this orange color. If I go ahead and my right click, I have the option to close all. I also have the option to look at my two databases either in a horizontal format, so one would be on the top, one would be on the bottom, or in a vertical format, they're side by side. So if I want to look at my two databases side by side, because I want to compare field names or I want to see the content of them next to one another, I can go ahead and I could look at it that way. I can also minimize and sort of adjust because there's only two fields in beginning inventory. There's more in my inventory, price, and cost. So let's see, can we do this for 3? Let's go ahead and look at them. Oops. I'm just trying to think if it'll let me look at all of them together, and it actually will. So we can just go ahead and adjust them and play with them so that you can see all of the necessary fields at one particular point in time, or at least maybe the relevant ones. It's helpful to look at your data this way if you're looking to identify what is my primary key. So in this one, it looks like I have product number at product number at product number. Okay. And actually too, let's go through and let's say I'm going to close beginning inventory. I'm going to close my inventory sales quantity, and I'm going to keep open just inventory price and cost. So let's say, for example, and if you go and you hover over your field names at the top, now it's not doing it. Okay. So if I go ahead and if I want to see, let's see, for my product number, I want to see that it's formatted in the right format for what I'm trying to do. So that would be, it's all numeric. I want to see if that field is all numeric or if it's character. And that's really going to come into how I can write formulas for IDEA. So let's go ahead, and really what you can do is just go over one of the individual records. So this is row 1, which means it's your first record. You're going to go ahead and just double click, and really in any of the field names. So now what you'll see is that it gives me the field name descriptions. So product number, product class, product description, sales price, unit cost. It also tells me the type associated with them. So if we go ahead and we click on it, and once again, when I see something in blue with an underscore, it's clickable, which means I can make minor changes to it if needed. So here, you can see is that product number is already defaulted as numeric, but I have the option if I want to change it to character. So character means it's some form of text or text and numerical mixed together. So really there's letters versus numbers. There's also the option to do date as well as to do time. So I think the least common one you'd use would be your time, and I think the other three, numerical, character, or date, would be the most common. Keep in mind if something is numeric, that is where we can apply calculations. So we can get averages, min, max, so on and so forth. If we took a product number and really here it's meant to be more qualitative than quantitative anyway, so it's fine. I mean, it really wouldn't make much of a difference if we change it to character because we're not going to do, an average on it or a min or a max or something like that. But you want to evaluate and see, does it make sense? Also too, from database to database, we can join our databases together. And if you're using some sort of primary key to connect the records from one database to the next, you need to make sure that that field name, the name itself doesn't need to be the exact same. However, the type needs to be the exact same. So if I had a product number and let's say it wasn't called PRODNO, it was PRODNUMBER, so the word number was spelled out. If one was character and the other one was numeric, they would not be able to be joined together because the type associated with the field would be different. So it becomes important, and you may need to change it from time to time, especially as you're trying to do any type of joining of your data, or you're trying to add what we call append, which is really just add your databases together. Product class is numeric. That's a numerical digit. We have product description as character, and that makes sense because it is in text. Sales price is numeric. That makes sense because we would want to quantify it in some sort of way, and unit cost is also numeric as well, which once again we'd want to quantify that. So we can go, and so we're happy with the type of each and every field name. We also here have the option to go ahead and to add a field. So this will show up differently because we're adding it. So for example, it is going to show up in a different color when it actually makes its way to our database, and that will signify to you that it has been added and it was not in the original data that was imported into the project. So I clicked on append, and you'll notice it gives me down to another field. It gives me the option of naming it. So let's go ahead and add in what we'll call gross margin. So notice if I use or I put a space in between, it's going to format it. And I could also type in gross margin. I could type that in all lowercase, and it automatically defaults to capital in IDEA. It's defaulting to virtual numeric, which is different from our standard imported values. And virtual numeric, what that means is it will recalculate as you open and close the database. So all of our calculations are by default virtual numeric, which is the format we want to keep them in. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually go ahead and we are going to calculate the sales price minus the unit cost. So I'm going to follow the same format associated with the sales price and unit cost fields. So I want to make that length 8 and decimals 2. I want to go ahead and change my, or if I go ahead and I click on this little inside my parameter, you'll notice I have this little hand that's showing. I want to go ahead and click on that. And what that'll do is it opens up the equation editor. So the equation editor is where I can go ahead and I can write formulas. And if I'm writing formulas, a couple things I need to be mindful of. I have all of my field names down here. So that's easy for me to go ahead and I want to go ahead and I can double click on them from this location right here. I can also sort based off of the type. So if I'm looking for a numerical field or I'm looking for certain lengths or characters or field names, I want it in alphabetical order, I can do that. So you can reorder your field names and based off of name, type, whatever you want. So let's say I'm going to put in my formula my sales price minus my unit cost. I can go ahead and just double click sales price until it shows up here. And then I could just go ahead and add in and you see all of the different functions available to us. So here we have quotations, here we have a separator, we have parentheses, we have equal sign, we have a double equal sign. So double equal sign, I guess how they're different. This is going to be sort of a true false type thing. If I see the double equal sign, that's an exact match. So if it has to be exactly the same, then you would use that. We have greater than, we have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. We also have this other sign. It's not equal. Plus, minus, times, divide, and or not. Mode, we have exponent, why can I not say that right now? And we also have a calendar icon, which I think is very helpful because there's a little bit of an odd nuance in terms of how we put in dates in IDEA. So what we're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to take your sales price and our formula will be minus, and it'll be minus our unit cost. So let's say, for example, I started to typing in the formula anyway. So what it'll do is as I'm going ahead and I start to type in something that starts with the field name, it'll automatically show it for you so that you don't have to type it in. So if I start to do that, like I start to type in the U, you'll notice that unit cost pops up. I can just go ahead and hit enter and my formula is there even faster. So here we have the option to go ahead and to validate our equation. So if we go ahead and do validate, it tells us it's valid. That means that we've written a formula correctly because there could be some odd nuances that we have to keep, like all text needs to be in quotations and dates need to be in a certain format. And so that would give us some sort of error message if we input a formula that was not in the correct format that is accepted by IDEA. So now that we have a format, it's been validated, we can go ahead and click the green check mark, which means to go ahead and to move along in our process. And now if we go ahead and click OK, watch what happens. A new field is added to our database and the actual answer is in this sort of greenish blue color. So it basically is a calculated, and if I hover, you'll see that you can see the formula. Sales price minus unit cost is my gross margin, and it calculated my values for all of my records. So if I wanted to find out, let's say for example, which product had a negative gross margin, meaning the sales price is less than the unit cost. Like why would I sell these three products if I'm going to lose money on those sales? And then we also see some where the gross margin is so tiny, like a penny, 8 cents, 10 cents. So if we were doing some type of analysis, we might draw from this that we really do not want to sell products that have negative gross margins or gross margins less than a certain dollar amount. You can also do and put an index on gross margin in descending order where you find out the products where you have the greatest dollar amount related to gross margin. So we could do, we could add another field and turn this gross margin dollar amount into a gross margin percentage if we wanted to, and really get a feel for what is our best products or where do we make the most significant amount of money in comparison to the sales price versus unit cost. Okay, so that is called appending a field. So anytime you want to append a field, you just go into your database, you can double click, you'll notice your field manipulation opens up, gives me an option to go ahead and append. So I'm going to close out of this right now. Another way to do it is in your your data ribbon, you'll see there's a section here that's called fields. Gives me the option to append. So append is adding. So that's the way in which your IDEA software refers to adding a field. So I can append It gives me a slightly different menu, but at the end of the day, it's going to do the same thing where it's going to give me the option to go ahead and add a field name. So here I could do, I'm going to name it gross margin 2, so we could do the same formula. Gives me the option to go ahead and determine the field type, length, let's see, decimals, I'm going to make it 2. I'm going to do my parameters. So this little calculator icon will take you back to that equation editor. So it takes me back to the same place. So as I start to type in sales price, I can go ahead and I can subtract my unit cost. I quickly validate, it's valid. I go ahead and press my green check mark. I go ahead and click OK. So it basically gets me to the same place in terms of adding a field. How I do it is different. So what's nice about your appended fields is, let's say I realize, wait a second, that's not the calculation I want. I want to go ahead and delete. So I have row 7 highlighted in the field manipulation menu, and I could go ahead and click delete. You sure do you want to permanently delete? Go ahead and click OK, and now it will disappear and just go back to the original gross margin that I calculated.